Hello plants! So Dehancer reached out to me asking if I wanted to review one of their plugins for Dehancer Pro. So of course I said yes. I've seen so many different creatives out here use it for their creative workflow, and I've been dying to try it out for myself. So they also have an app version, which I'll briefly talk about. Essentially, it's the same as a plugin you can use for desktop, but you can use it for photos and videos on the go. But for now, let's dive into this video so I can show you how I've been using Dehancer for my own creative workflow. So for this video, I'm going to be using Davinci Resolve 19. This is a free version. I do use Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro interchangeably with this software, but I do think that with Dehancer, you do have a lot of more options and variety to work with, especially with color grading. So basically, we're going to start off with this clip from a flat range and get it over into a cinematic magical frame after, which will look something like this. So here's the flat, here's the final that I've already graded, and here's the flat. So first and foremost, what you want to do is in Davinci, go to the effects panel and search up Dehancer. I already have it right here. So normally what I do is I keep it basic from one node. You can use multiple nodes, but I just like keeping it simple with just one. As you can see, there's already an effect here. It doesn't look as great right now, but we're going to go ahead and fix that. First, we're going to hit Shift F so we can get a full screen. Now you can see a little bit more when you're color grading. So there's a trick in Resolve where if you hit Alt or if you hit the option button and select the input, it will collapse and then open everything. So I like to disable whatever is enabled in here just so I can get back to the flat look. So as you can see now, everything is flat. Once I go back into there, I just hit Alt and then everything's compressed and I work one by one. So the first thing you want to do is select an input. I like to select the camera that I use, so I choose the camera. I select Sony, and then I have the Sony A6700, great camera if you're starting, and then I use S-Log3, S-Gamut3.cine. As you can see, you can get Rec 709 as easy as that with just a couple of clicks with Dehancer. Then basic controls you have right here are just exposure, which I'll bring up to a 2. You can also change the temperature, make it a little warmer, a little cooler. Since we're in California, I'm gonna go ahead and warm it up just a little bit, maybe 11.9. And then you can also change the tint, which is gonna be your magentas versus your greens. I'll probably keep that. Maybe keep a little green. And then I don't use the fringe, I just kind of skip that since I don't really see any shift. So the next thing I like to go to is just the film. So here, if you select film and enable it, this is basically what Dehancer has in terms of film stocks that you can choose from. You can go through Kodak, you can also go through Polaroid, and you can also go through Fujicolor, which are all great options, but I think that I'm gonna go ahead and use the AFGA Color X200p 1991. That looks pretty cool. And then when you have this, you can always go back to this later. You can adjust the push and pull, which is going to be the effect of the film stock and how much it's changing essentially, like with colors. For now, I'm going to push it towards this end, and that kind of gives me the film look that I want to get. So the next thing I like to go to is print. You can choose between Cineon long film, you can choose between Fujifilm, print, and you can also choose Kodak and Endura glossy paper. I really like the glossy paper. I've seen a lot of people use it and it just gives me the best results when using it. You can also adjust the exposure and then the contrast of your image. Probably just or add a little bit more for the exposure. And the tonal contrast kind of just changes the tone of your image, the shadows, the blacks. Color density changes the amount of color you see in here. It doesn't really add a lot. The little, the better. You know, you don't want to go too crazy when adding too much color in here. So next up, I like to go to Film Developer. Film Developer basically just affects the colors you're gonna get, like the contrast, the gamma saturation, the color boost. And then the color boost, just add more saturation to the image. It's too much, so I'll probably just keep it where it is for now. So the next thing that I also like to choose is the film compression. So film compression is just really good for adjusting highlights. If you enable it, changes the highlights, takes it away. You can adjust the input of it, make it a little brighter in the highlights, make it a little darker. I'll go ahead for like a little darker look. And the white point, you can also adjust that to make it a little bit more brighter in the whites or a little bit darker. Since I'm seeing some clipping, I'm gonna go ahead and make that a little bit lower. And then the tonal range, that kind of just adjusts the tones in your image. And the color density just changes the colors in your photos, make them look a little bit more vibrant or a little less. And then color head. I like using color head sometimes, especially for like adding more yellows, blues, magentas, greens, etc. to my image, and the shadows, midtones, highlights, and tones. So if this is enabled, you can see if you add it here, it will make it a little bit more blue, make it a little bit more yellow. And the magenta and green, make it more green, make it more magenta. And then the cayenne red, make it a little bit more red, make it a little bit more cayenne. And then you have basic things down here such as film grain, and add that in. I don't really like adding too much grain. I'll probably keep it at 35, maybe 50. and that will give me like a nice little grain in the back, and then we'll change that all the way down to like 3 since I don't want that to overpower it. And then you have halation and bloom, which I really love that they have in here. Halation basically adds that kind of red glare in your image. Change it to Super 8, you can kind of see it here on my hair. I think for now I'm gonna disable it. Maybe we'll bring it to like a 7.6, and we'll also change it to 35. Super 35, just keep it there. And the bloom, I love bloom because it makes your footage essentially look dreamy, which gives you that buttery and crisp look, especially in your footage. So once that's enabled, you can adjust this as much as you want, make it 100, make it less. You can see what it does, kind of makes me stand out with a little glow. And then this is basically what you get. This is what my workflow for color grading looks like. This is what I have gotten. And overall, this result looks perfect to me. Now let's hop into a next shot. So this clip here is actually of one of my friends when we were at the beach. It's a sunset clip, so there are a lot of highlights, a lot of contrast in the sunset line and then the waves. I already have Dehancer added on to this one in the effect too. Beginning, choosing the camera that you're using to get into Rec 709. This is what it gives me the look so far. I already adjusted and picked my film emulator with this clip. I chose the Fuji color and then I pulled it to 2.0. So expand. I did enable this, add some adjustments to my black point and white point, which gets the look looking something like this. Moving over to print, I did choose Kodak Indera glossy paper. This is what it looks like with it adjusted before and after. So as you can see, it kind of makes everything a little bit more darker, a little bit more contrasty. I adjusted the exposure and lowered the tonal contrast and improved the color density to get me this shot. I did add a little bit of film grain. You can see the before and after. As you can see here, it does add a little bit of a soft film grain, which I do like for this sunset shot. I skipped out on halation for this, but for the bloom, I did 35 meter Super 35. When that's enabled, kind of adds a little glowy effect around my subject. And then the sunset and the waves, you can kind of see, again, before and after. So that's looking pretty good right now. I just want to dive into overscan a little bit, but the one thing I liked about Dehancer, especially for like vertical and horizontal placements, is that you can have a plethora of looks between film stocks and film looks. So you can go to Super 8, you can go to Ultra 16mm, and you can customize this as much as you want. You can improve the scale, decrease it, change the exposure of it. The overscan, just gonna keep it as is, but that is a great tool that they have, which I really do like. And then for this clip, lastly, I am gonna add vignette. So I already played around with these settings of the exposure, the size, the feather, etc. Once that's added, as you can see around the edges, it kind of isolates your subject a little bit and makes the center more focused. So before and after. Before, as you can see, after, as a little thing. And then yeah, this is the clip that I ended up with. I think so far it looks amazing. I'm happy with how this shot has turned out. So now that I walked through how Dehancer works, let's kind of talk about the price, as it is expensive. It's gonna run you about $450 for the yearly subscription. Thankfully, Dehancer does have cheaper options for monthly, weekly subscriptions too. However, if you're broke like me and are struggling with money, you can also save 10% if you use my discount, which is pressed for 10. I do want to say thank you, Dehancer, for reaching out to me to try this software. It has been a dream come true, and I cannot wait to keep on using this for my creative workflow and projects in the future. And with that being said, take care, plants, and happy color grading.